Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a zombie horror film, The Dead. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a robed man named Brian wandering through the vast deserts of Africa. He is tired, but suddenly witnesses a zombie walking with broken limbs. The zombie walks slowly toward Brian, but he simply walks away because he doesn't want to waste his bullets. Soon after, Brian ends up shooting another zombie in front of him. He walks up to the body and takes a gun from the zombie's pocket. Right then, a flashback shows the last evacuation of some survivors of a zombie apocalypse in West Africa. Brian is also on this plane and is revealed to be a U.S. Air Force engineer. One of the survivors is shown to have been bitten and he's about to die, much to his wife's dismay. The plane runs out of fuel and things start to get chaotic when the infected man dies. A soldier tries to shoot him in the head to prevent his transformation, but the wife stops him from doing so. The infected man suddenly turns into a zombie and bites the soldier's hand. The soldier kills him, but has to shoot himself to prevent his own transformation. As the plane prepares for a crash landing, we witness a horrid sight of zombies attacking a local village. Several people are killed brutally, and even the army isn't able to control the increasing number of zombies. A little boy and his mother try to hide from one of the zombies, but it's of no use as the mother is quickly eaten and killed by the zombie. The little boy manages to escape the scene, and then he rushes into an army truck that escapes the area. It's reported that the plane from earlier has crashed, but there are some survivors from the incident. A woman begs for help as she begins to drown, so Brian tries to go after her. However, it's of no use as she drops dead to the bottom of the river. Brian is able to survive the waves by holding onto a cargo box, and he slowly drifts back to the shore. There's no time to rest as he spots a horde of zombies walking towards him. There are two more survivors with Brian, but one of them brainlessly attacks the zombies before running away despite Brian's warnings. The zombies close in on the other survivor and begin eating him and his smelly part. Brian tries his best to break open the cargo box. A tense sequence follows, but Brian eventually opens the box and loads himself up with weapons. He shoots down all the nearby zombies and runs away into the forest to avoid the others. Now, a soldier named Daniel walks into his home and is shocked to see the remains of his wife, who is revealed to be the mother of the boy that managed to escape with the army earlier. Brian changes into his army clothes and takes a look at a picture of his family. He makes his way through some long grass, but there's also a zombie lurking nearby. Brian takes a quick scan of the area and hears a strange noise, so he tries to get out of the long grass. However, he abruptly bumps into the zombie and gets attacked. A brief struggle follows, but Brian manages to kill the zombie. Meanwhile, Daniel finds a survivor in the village and asks her about his son. He's relieved to learn that his son was able to escape the zombie attack, but the survivor passes away right in front of him. She turns into a zombie and comes after Daniel, so he has to kill her reluctantly. Later, Brian enters Daniel's village and checks for any zombies nearby. He finds some shotgun shells, smells them, and senses something fishy like bad hormones. Brian notices an endless path of mountains and terrains, and is disappointed to see that he's stuck in the middle of nowhere. After that, he gets into an abandoned car and tries to start it up, but there's no fuel in it. Luckily, Brian finds some gasoline and uses it to fill the tanker. He does his best to fix the car, but does not notice all the zombies that are walking toward him. Brian is attacked by one of the zombies. He falls to the ground, but is able to shoot it in time. Brian acts fast as he tries to start the car before the other zombies reach him. There's a brief moment of panic, but he's eventually able to get himself out of danger. Brian has to stop the car when he notices the survivor from earlier, who has now become a zombie. He knocks down the zombie with the car, smashes his head, and takes some supplies from the body. With nothing else to do and zombies everywhere, Brian tries to drive as far away as possible, but the car starts to falter. It eventually gets stuck in a ditch and is unable to go ahead, so Brian tries to clear the path. However, the zombies come up to him and attack him. Brian runs out of bullets and is about to be eaten, but then he gets saved by Daniel, who shoots down all the zombies. Daniel confirms that Brian hasn't been bitten, and he helps him get the car out of the ditch. Brian decides to offer Daniel some support, so he gives him a ride inside the car. Daniel then talks about finding his son and asks why all the Americans have deserted his people during this time of need. Brian simply says that he is an engineer who doesn't have any loyalty toward any country. Brian wants to know if there's a place from where they can fly out, so Daniel tells him he will take him to an airbase if he gets the car in return. Brian agrees to the deal, and then he reveals how the plane he was on had crashed off the coast due to the damaged engines. Daniel says his job is to stay at the roadblocks and kill the zombies, but he's not interested in that because he only wants to find his son, who is most likely heading to a military base ahead of the mountains. The next scene shows the military making their way through the jungle. A couple of survivors cry for help, but only one of them is saved because the other has been bitten. The soldiers kill the infected survivor and carry on with their journey, while Daniel's son rests inside their truck. Meanwhile, Brian and Daniel come across an abandoned house and find blood everywhere. They carefully check out the area, but get jump-scared by a bunch of ugly zombies. They shoot them down and get inside the house. There they learn that these zombies were once a happy family. Brian finds some drugs next to the bodies and collects them for good measure. Both men get back into the car and continue their journey, but the car eventually runs out of fuel and stops. Daniel believes that they can make it to the airbase on foot with God's blessing, so Brian joins him. They eventually reach the airbase, but it is in really bad condition. Brian enters an office and has to use his flashlight to walk through the dark halls. When exploring the place, he hears a dreadful sound and notices something odd, but his flashlight goes off for a second, so he quickly switches it back on. Brian is immediately attacked by a rotting zombie, and he struggles to keep up with it. Luckily, Brian finds a fire extinguisher and uses it to smash the zombie's smelly head to onion pieces. Now Daniel fills up on some fuel, while Brian makes his way to the communication tower. Brian tries using the radio to send a message, but is unable to contact anyone. Realizing that this place is of no use, Brian decides to join Daniel on his way to the military base. The two walk towards the car, but they are unable to reach it before it gets dark. They hear some noises and spot a zombie walking in front of them. They manage to avoid it and get to the car, after which Brian starts fueling it up. Daniel keeps a close watch and kills a zombie that's approaching the car. Suddenly, Daniel notices a zombie crawling on the ground toward Brian, so he kills it as well. The two get back inside the car and escape, now that they've started it up again. However, they are low on food and ammo, so they need to find something soon. Brian starts to feel weak and falls asleep on the wheel while also getting nightmares. He crashes into a zombie on the way, so they switch places in order for Brian to get some much-needed sleep. The two men reach a military camp afterward, but are halted by the soldiers. Luckily, Daniel is able to vouch for Brian and convinces the soldiers to offer some food and shelter to them. Brian is puzzled to see the army protecting so many survivors, and then he spots a witch doctor. The commander of the base tells Brian that the people believe in the witch doctor for safety. At night, Daniel has a chat with the commander and reveals that he's trying to look for his son. Meanwhile, Brian spots the witch doctor chanting a ritual spell. Daniel learns from the commander that the village invasion started when a woman's father became infected and started spreading the virus. The commander and Daniel get into an intense discussion about nature and its intentions for mankind. They hear some bullets, but the commander reassures Daniel that none of the zombies will be able to break through the village's defenses. Brian gets a fever and tries to rest, but the witch doctor starts to appear in his visions. The witch doctor's ritual becomes more intense, and it puts Brian into a state of trance. He also sees a vision of himself coming back home to his wife and daughter in a highly emotional sequence. Brian wakes up the next day with his fever broken. Daniel tells him it's time to leave. Daniel rashly drives the car, causing the car's engine to heat up. Brian then takes a look into it. Some zombies come close to them, but Brian insists that they need to fix the car's coolant. He wants to use their drinking water to fix the coolant, but Daniel is against the idea because there is no water body for miles. The two argue for a bit, but Brian convinces Daniel that this is the best chance they got. Luckily, Brian manages to fix the car with the water, and they get out of the zombie zone safe and sound. After some time, they find a water pump that is safe to drink from. They stock up on water and refresh themselves, but zombies start to appear, so they rush into the car and get away. It gets dark as night sets in, and Brian accidentally bumps into a zombie. This leads to the car going off-road and crashing into a tree. The car's axle gets broken, so the two are stranded now. Daniel asks Brian to turn the lights on, but he doesn't want to attract any attention. Regardless, Daniel forces Brian to do as he says, and they spot a horde of zombies. They quickly get out of the car and kill all the zombies before escaping. Brian suggests taking a rest and eating to regain their strength. Daniel talks about how he wants to pass on a family necklace to his son, while Brian mentions that he lost his own son a while ago. As they check out a map, Daniel points out an area known as the Devil's Claw, which they will have to pass in order to reach the military base. They set up a perimeter alarm and go to sleep, but it doesn't wake them up when a horde of zombies arrives. The zombies bite into Daniel and attack Brian as well. Brian is able to defend himself and kill all the zombies, but it's too late for Daniel, who is certain to die now. Brian carries Daniel to a tree, and they bid each other farewell before Daniel passes away. Brian shoots him in the head to stop him from becoming a zombie, and then he carries on his way solo with Daniel's necklace. Brian takes shelter under a giant rock, but here's a zombie on top of him. He prepares to shoot it, but luckily, the zombie walks away. Brian thinks about his wife and daughter, and it gives him the motivation to carry on. Later, he finds an injured mother and her baby running away from some zombies. The mother has already been bitten, so she gives her baby to Brian and begs him to shoot her before she transforms. Brian painfully obliges and kills the mother, but he doesn't know if he can take care of the baby. Luckily, he runs into a group of survivors and gives them the baby so that they can take care of it. Now Brian sets up his spot for the night and rests on top of a tree after dropping his rifle to the ground. Some zombies pass by, but they can't reach him. The next morning, Brian continues on his journey and finally finds the Devil's Claw. He must climb this area to get to the other side, so he gets to work immediately. In the middle of his efforts, a bunch of zombies appear and they follow after him. Brian struggles to climb the rocks and is almost caught by the zombies, but he evades them and continues his ascent. Brian gets to the top of the Devil's Claw and refreshes himself with some water, but he has a lot of distance left to cover. On his way, he finds a zombie in a robe and decides to take the robe for himself. This is how Brian became the robed man, as seen earlier in the film. However, he runs out of energy and drops to the ground. Brian eventually wakes up and spots a ton of zombies outside a shelter. He begins a brutal assault and kills all the zombies using his rifle and blade. The people inside the shelter are amazed to see his strength and take him inside. Brian refreshes himself and asks the leader of the shelter if they have any communication equipment. The leader says the radio isn't working, but Brian is able to fix it and tries to radio for support. He starts to lose hope, but one of his military friends finally responds. Brian is hopeful for his rescue, but his friend says that his family is dead and everyone is evacuating their positions because they are under attack. Brian is heartbroken to hear this. To make matters worse, some more zombies break through the shelter and start killing everyone. Hopeless and dejected, Brian just stands next to the wall, but then he spots Daniel's son, so he passes on Daniel's necklace to him. The movie ends with Brian and Daniel's son joining forces as they prepare to take on the zombie invasion. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.